Streamerbot is a bot that you use for streaming, as the name suggests. It's extremely versatile and it lets you do anything from auto mod to sending out messages for chat commands or even fulfilling redeems, and controlling your VTuber model if you so desire. I did a video on it a while back, but I think it's time for an update because Streamerbot itself got an update that includes a massive UI overhaul. So let's learn the basics that you might need to know about Streamerbot as a 2D VTuber. Today, we'll cover Twitch and VTube Studio integration basics, and if you're looking for something in particular, please check out the timestamps below. First up, download Streamerbot from the site. Streamerbot is not an application that you actually install on your computer, it's just a little application that you run from a folder. That being said though, you do need to put this folder somewhere safe so that you can remember where it is and prevent yourself from deleting it. Once you find it a home though, you can double click and run the application file. Streamerbot can be intimidating for beginners, so we can connect our Twitch first and I'll show you the basics for commands and redeems. To link Twitch, go to the Platforms tab, and then in the Twitch tab, click this button here to log in and authorize Streamerbot's permissions for your account. Once you're logged in, you should see your account over here. If you want to add a bot account as well, we can do that by simply logging out of our main account, logging into the bot account, and then doing the same process. So I'm going to do that real quick. As you can see, you can also link your YouTube, Trovo, and Kick if you really want to, but I'll just be covering Twitch integration today as it's got the most robust set of events. Now that we're connected, I will explain the fundamentals. This Actions tab here is sort of like the bread and butter of Streamerbot. Basically, an action here, which you can make by right-clicking and adding, and you don't have to follow along, I'm just showing you the basics. If you add an action here, this will be triggered by something in this trigger section. And so that can be anything like a command inside of your Twitch chat. It could be something like an OBS Studio, a recording started or stopped, or it could be something like an Elgato Wavelink device, a filter added, or anything like that. You can add dozens of triggers. And you can also do key press triggers as well, which is something we'll talk about in a little bit. Once this action is triggered by the trigger that's in this list, it will run a list of sub-actions. And the sub-actions can again be anything that you want. It could be sending a message to channel in Twitch, it could be changing OBS scenes, and it could be sending TTS to Speakerbot. There are so many integrations for this app, and one of the ones that we'll be talking about today is going to be all of the VTube Studio integrations. That being said, I'm going to delete this and we can start from scratch by making a command. Commands are something that your chat can activate, and they're usually denoted by an exclamation mark at the beginning of the command. They're most commonly used to send stuff like social media links, so let's make one. We have to make an action to start, so in your Actions tab, right click and add a new action. And I'm going to name this Send Elgato Link. We want it enabled by default. You can group actions together as well, and if you want to make a new group, all you have to do is type it out here. So I'm going to make this automated messages, maybe. Down here, there are some extra options. These aren't relevant to us right now, but if you hover on them, they will let you know what they do. We can hit OK, and now we have our automated messages group with our new link action. Now we have to add a trigger, which is going to be a command. So we can right click, add core command, command triggered. And as you can see, we don't have any commands right now because this is a brand new Streamerbot copy, so we're going to have to make a new one. You can make them here, although you can also make them up here in the commands tab, and I'll show that off in a second, but hit the create command button and it will pull up your command menu. Inside of the command menu, we're going to first name the command. I'm going to name it the same thing so it's easy to find, Send Elgato Link. That's actually the title for the command, not the command itself. Then in this command box, this is what the command is actually going to be. This is what people will type to use the command in your chat. I'm going to do exclamation mark Elgato. This option here will check where the command is located. In most cases, you want to leave it as start because it will just be at the beginning of the person's message. And if it's exact, that means there can only be this component in the message. Whereas with anywhere, it doesn't have to be in the beginning or end. It could be anywhere in the sentence and it would still work. Start is usually the best option in most cases. So I'm going to leave it there. We can also have groups for our commands as well. So I'm going to name this social links. Ignore bot account and ignore internal messages. We'll just ignore your own bullshit, so it's usually good to have on. And then these persist options will count how many times the command has been triggered and how many times the command has been triggered by a person in specific. So this isn't relevant for us right now. Case sensitive will also just make sure that this only runs if the case is correct, and we don't want that because if somebody capitalizes the E in Elgato for some reason, we don't want it to get denied. So let's just leave this as is. Over here on the right side, we have our permission permissions, and the permissions are kind of weird, but it makes more sense if you just read this over and over again to try and make sense of it. Allow all or only those. So basically, this section is the all section. So if we want everyone to be allowed, we're allowing all in this chunk over here on the left-hand side. But if we only want specific people to be able to use a command, you'll click on that group of people and move them over. So then you can think of it as left side means all, and then if there is something on the right side, it's only those. I don't know how else to explain this. It's kind of weird, but basically if you want everyone to be able to use it, set it to this and leave everything on the left-hand side. And if you want it to only be mods, then just move the mods to the right-hand side, and then these people will be denied. Hopefully that makes sense. And this side includes everyone as well, not just subscribers, VIPs. This is also like people who don't have roles in your chat as well. It's kind of confusing. And if you want, you can also switch this to the inverse as well. It just depends on your perms needs. In this situation, we don't need to deny anyone perms for this because this is not a moderation command or anything like that. So there's also specific user perms as well. And lastly, we have our sources and cooldowns. Sources is just going to be where the actual command comes from, and I'm just going to leave this as Twitch only because that's all I'm using. And for the cooldowns, we don't want people to be able to spam this. Not that anyone probably would spam this, but I'm just going to set it to 30 seconds per user and 30 seconds overall as well. And then I'm going to hit OK, and that will create our command. Then it will have that new command listed as our chosen command, so we could just go ahead and hit OK. Now we actually need to make our sub action for this, which is what's going to actually occur when the command runs. So we want it to send a message. So let's right click, add Twitch channel or chat, send message to channel. And in here, we're going to type what message we want to go through to chat. There we go. And hit OK. Then if we open up our Twitch chat inside of Streamerbot, we can go ahead and use our new Elgato command, and it will send the message that we just typed out. So it's super simple to use commands inside of Streamerbot. Commands can also use in tandem with variables, and I won't be getting too much into detail with variables today, but I do feel like it's something we should talk about. So let's make a follow age command to get accustomed to variables. First, we're going to make a new action. By right-clicking and adding a new action, we're going to name this send follow age, and we can also leave this in the automated messages group since it's also an automated message. Then hit OK. Next up, we have to make a command just like last time, so we'll right-click, add core, command triggered, and again, we need to make a new command, so I'm going to name this send follow age, exclamation mark, follow age, and hit OK. And I didn't set any cooldowns for it, but whatever, I don't care. Now we want to send a Twitch message that'll say something like, hey username, your follow age is blank. But where do we get that information? We first have to know who to respond to. And second of all, we have to know the follow age. So where the heck do we get that from? Well, we can do a test real quick and then inspect the variables to start getting some information. So let's right click and test this trigger. And then if we go into our action history over here, we can right click the action that we just did and inspect the variables after run. And we have all of this variable information that we got from the action actually running. So of course there's the source, for example, which is a command. There is the is test true because it was a test and it wasn't actually somebody running it. So there's tons of different variables here, and everything on the left-hand side is the name of the variable itself. And on the right-hand side, this is the actual value of that variable. The username is going to either be user, which is case sensitive, or username, which is not case sensitive. But if we scroll down, we don't actually have the follow age information. So how do we get that? Well, we have to add it in. So let's go back to our actions tab, and we can get that information by right-clicking and adding Twitch followers, get follow age info for target. And now it's asking, well, who do you want to get that information from? And obviously it's going to change every time. It's never just going to be like a single user's name because every person that does the command is a separate entity. So that's where variables come into play. So instead of typing out a username every single time, we put in a variable and the variable will update as needed. So to use a variable, we do % and then the variable name, in this case, user, as we found earlier, that'll store the username for this currently run action, and then another %. So anytime you use variables, they're going to be smashed between % symbols, at least inside of sub actions like this. And then we can hit OK. And now it's going to get the follow age for that person. So let's try it again. So right click, test, and then we can go to action history and inspect the variables after run. And we have all of the information that we had before, but now if we scroll down to the bottom, we also pulled all of the follow age information. And there's a ton of different formats for this for some reason. So I feel like follow age short might be the best format. It's got year, month, day, hour, minutes, and seconds, which is crazy. Let's use follow age short for this. We can close that out and go back to our actions. And now we're ready to type our message out. So we can right click, add Twitch chat, send message to channel, and we can say %user, your follow age is : %follow age short and %. And then hit OK. And now if we open up our chat and we try this out, !follow age, it'll let me know how long I've been following myself. But obviously any person that uses this, it will replace the name and it will replace their actual follow age here. So the same concept can be applied to tons of other subactions as well, including logic subactions, and anytime you want to send a message, you can replace it with a variable. All you have to do to get the variable is go into your action history and run a test run, and then you can usually pull whatever variables you need from there. Before we move on, I also did just want to touch on the commands tab. If you are making a ton of commands and you need to go in and edit them, or if you mess one up by any chance, you can access them all from here. This isn't in a group. Go into the group. Oh, I guess that's not really social links. Stuff. But basically you can go in here and double click any of these and update them or edit them as needed. And if you ever want to turn any of them off, you can turn them off with subactions, but you can also come in here and manually enable or disable them as needed. Now that you know how commands and variables work, let's try making a redeem. And for this example, let's just make a basic hydrate redeem because you don't actually have to do anything in the subactions area. I just want to show you how to make a redeem. So similar to before, we're just going to right click and add and make a new action, and we can name this hydrate, and I'll make a new group health checks and hit OK. And then up in the trigger section, we're going to make this a channel reward redeem. Right click, add Twitch, channel reward redemption. I have all of my actual rewards in here because I'm logged into Twitch. I'm not going to look at those right now. We're going to pretend there's nothing there and make a new one. So make a new one, and we're going to name this hydrate. And this is how it'll actually appear inside of Twitch, by the way. So for the description, this is going to be what the actual user who is clicking on the button will see as the prompt: make me drink Wawa. And then you can change the color of the redeem here. Down here we have user input required, where you can have the user actually be forced to type something out as a choice or as an option. And this is good for TTS stuff. We're not going to be covering that today, but you would do that here. This queue stuff is also unnecessary for us right now, but basically you can have a queue that prioritizes the order of things. Here is the cost. Let's just make this 150, or honestly even 50. And you can have a max per stream and a max per user per stream, not relevant for hydrating. And then you can have a cooldown. So let's just make this 100 seconds or something like that. Again, the persist counter, not relevant for us in this situation, but this would count how many times it's been used overall and how many times it's been used per user. And I'm going to put this in its own little group. So now I have my hydrate redeem ready to go, and I can hit OK. Now the hydrate redeem will trigger this action. Currently, the action does nothing, so we can go down here in the bottom and we have our new hydrate redeem. We can click that and redeem it, and it works like normal. And then inside of Streamerbot, if we go into our action history, we can see that there was indeed a hydrate redeem that happened. So it is running the action, although it's not actually doing anything right now. Obviously, the next step is to start incorporating our VTube Studio stuff into everything so we can actually tie these redeems and commands into VTuber model stuff. And the first step for that is to connect our VTube Studio. So for VTube Studio connection, you're going to go into the integration section, and down here in the bottom right, there is the VTube Studio section. Click on that. And then we're going to turn on both auto connect and auto reconnect. These will basically just prevent you from having to manually connect every time you open VTube Studio. And if there's ever any disconnect, it will automatically search for itself and try to reconnect. You can leave the IP address as localhost or 127.0.0.1 because this basically just means it exists on my PC. It's not on a different network or anything like that. And then for the port, the default is 8001. So I would recommend leaving it as that. Your VTube Studio is probably already set to 8001. Inside of VTube Studio, you will double click and go to the first menu and scroll down to this API section. This API should be turned on and running. And as you can see, the port is 8001. If this did not say 8001, you will either have to change Streamerbot or VTube Studio so that they match up. Once it says toggled on, you can go into Streamerbot and hit the connect button. And then back inside of VTube Studio, you will get a prompt requesting API access, to which you will want to click allow. And now you have VTube Studio linked up with Streamerbot. So if I were to add a VTube Studio integration as a sub action down here, let's just check out what options we have before we make any new actions. Right click, add integrations, VTube Studio. So as an overview, in our sub actions tab, we have color, tint, and reset tint. Then we also have get current model. We have 2 model loading options, model movement, 3 ways to trigger expressions or hotkeys, and finally we also have raw request as well. So let's start off with the model movement, since that's pretty important and really easy to use, so we can learn keybinds while we do it. So right click and add a new action, and we're going to name this bottom right, and I'm going to name this group model movement and hit OK. And for this, we're just going to move our model to the bottom right. So I'm going to right click, add, integrations, VTube Studio, and move model. And here we've got the information about where we want the model to move. So I am going to mess up my recording. I'm going to move myself down here and make myself, what did I say? Bottom right? Let's do that. Bottom right, and then back inside of Streamerbot, we're going to capture model position. So this captures your X and Y position, as well as your rotation, and then your size as well. There are 2 spots up here that are going to be empty, so we'll have to fill these out. Time in seconds is how fast you want this to happen. If you want it to happen in the blink of an eye, you can set it to a really low value, or you can keep this kind of high, like if you wanted to actually fade in. I'm just going to leave this kind of low. And then the relative to model section is asking you if you want it to be additive or if you want it to be the same location every single time. Relative to model would just add it every single time. So if you had position X as 1, for example, anytime that you press this hotkey, it would move you forward by 1, if that makes sense. Whereas if you set it to not relative, it would always send you to position 1 and it wouldn't ever increase. Hopefully that makes sense. That being said, we don't want this to be relative, so I'm going to set this to false and hit OK. Obviously, I'm in the bottom right and I want another position as well. So I'm going to right click and duplicate this and then double click, and I'm going to rename this middle and hit OK. And then I am going to, inside of VTube Studio, return myself to my normal position that is hopefully not too different from where I was before, and minimize this, and then again, capture model position. So now we have our 2 options, the bottom right and the middle trigger. Since both of these are something you're probably going to want to use relatively often, you can bind these to a hotkey inside of Streamerbot. That'll be under right click, add core, input, key press. So you can click this capture key button here and then put whatever hotkey you want. So I'm going to put this on Alt 2 and hit save key and OK. And now if I press Alt 2, I move over to the bottom right. But I want to be able to move back as well. So I'm going to go to this middle option and right click, add core, input, key press, capture key, and we're going to set this to Alt 3 and save key and hit OK. And now if I go into VTube Studio, I can press Alt 2, Alt 3, Alt 2, Alt 3, Alt 2, Alt 3, and I can swap between the 2 positions. Stream Deck users can also install the Streamerbot plugin and use actions easily by attaching them to a Stream Deck key or dial. Mine is not perfectly functional right now because I'm connected to my other Streamerbot. So basically what you would do is you drag an action into your Stream Deck and then you have to connect to your Streamerbot. And to do that, you go into integrations, Elgato Stream Deck, auto start, and then you start the server and it should automatically connect. And then once it's connected, you can basically just pull up any of your actions from this list and attach them to a key press. So I could set bottom right here, for example, and if I press it, it'll move me over. On top of that, there's also a dedicated VTube Studio plugin as well. So this is even easier to use, arguably, but I like to use Streamerbot for all of my actions because it allows for more versatility than just this. Although this is extremely easy to use if that's all you want to use. If you want more info on setting up this stuff with your Stream Deck, I have a video on that topic linked below. And if you want to pick up a Stream Deck, be sure to use my code at checkout and it'll save you some money. And with the nature of Streamerbot, you can obviously, instead of having this be set to a trigger, trigger, you can have it set to audience commands as well. And you can have multiple triggers too. So if I really wanted to, in my bottom right, I could right click, add, core, command triggered, create a new command, blah, 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 because I don't care, exclamation mark, small, and hit OK. And then if I go into my chat, instead of pressing the hotkey, if I type small, it'll do the same thing via command instead of via hotkey, and the hotkey will still work as well. You can have multiple triggers. There is also the option to swap models as well. So let's make a model swap. I'll name this chibi model. And then again, we can do whatever trigger that we want. So we can make this a redeem. So let's do Twitch, channel reward redemption, create a new one, chibi model, blah, 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 because I don't care, and hit create. And then over here, add integrations, VTube Studio, load model. And then we can pick which model that we want. I'm going to set this to Phlox v4 chibi. If I redeem the chibi model redeem, it will switch me out for my chibi. And then obviously I want to be able to swap back. So I can add main model, add Twitch, channel reward redemption, create reward, main model, create, right click, add integrations, VTube Studio, load model. And I'll change this back to my V4 Epsilon, which is my main model. And then we can now switch back to my main model. Very easy to do. Next up is the fun part, which is actual model toggles. But before we can start tying these to redeems, we need to talk about the difference between expressions and hotkeys, because not enough people know the difference. And it's very important because you have all of these options for how you can trigger toggles. So let's talk about it. Expressions inside of VTube Studio are a set of parameter settings that when activated will change your appearance using those parameters alone. And these are edited inside of VTube Studio in this expression editor tab here. You can create a new expression and you can adjust certain parts of your model. That's a crazy pick for me to show. How about this one? Let's just do eye brightness. So I can adjust my eye brightness here. This is built into my model. So if your model does not have any toggles, then you will not be able to create expressions. When you're done with these, they are going to be saved as expression JSON files. And these will be found inside of your model folder inside of VTube Studio. Next up, we have hotkeys. And hotkeys are slots that are saved in your VTube Studio that can store an action, like activating expression files, which we just talked about, or doing other things like turning on special effects, reloading your model, or changing model tints. And these are going to be located in the same menu where the expression editor is, except you have to add them by scrolling to the bottom and hitting this plus button. Once you make a new hotkey, you can name it here, and then you can assign an action to it. And like I said before, these actions can be pretty much anything inside of VTube Studio. There's a lot of functionality. And these can't be activated using expressions as they are functions inside of VTube Studio. They are not model parameters. Furthermore, hotkeys can be bound to a specific key press. And once bound, they can activate anytime that you want them to. If you set a hotkey to an expression, you have additional control over that expression, which includes the amount of time you would like the expression to fade in for, as well as the option to stop after a certain period of time, which means that it will turn off the expression automatically after however many seconds. You can also stop when the key is let go, which means that if I'll just show you real quick. If I set this to beer, why do I have 3 beers? Whatever. If I bound this to like 8 and then pressed 8 and hold 8, it'll keep the beer on, but if I let go of 8, it goes away. That is an option here. This is not available inherently with expression files. Expression files are just information about your model. So you only have these options when you have the expression bound to a hotkey. You also don't need to have the hotkey actually bound to a key press to use it. Because in Streamerbot, we can trigger hotkeys by name or by their listing. And we don't have to worry about pressing anything if it's bound to a trigger like a channel redeem. And all of that is to say a few things. 1, you don't need hotkeys to activate expressions, and you don't need keybinds to activate hotkeys. 2, hotkeys can be expressions, but they can also be other things as well. 3, expressions cannot be anything but expressions. You can't activate special effects or other VTube Studio actions by using expressions. And 4, hotkeys have additional settings for controlling expressions that expressions do not inherently contain. Hopefully all of that makes sense. I'll break it down further because I'm going to do an example of each of these. Let's do expressions first. Most expressions can be categorized in two areas, like a basic toggle for an item, a facial expression, or clothing toggle that's on your model, or you also have the very common color expressions using color sliders. Now, not all models have color sliders, and if you don't, no worries, there's another way that you can recolor your model. So I'm going to make an expression first by scrolling up here. This is going to be in the 4th tab, expression editor, create new expression. I would toggle on the expression, for example, angry. I would name the expression angry, and then I would save the file here. I'm not going to do this because I already have all of my expressions made, but that's how you would do it. And if you have any color sliders, like for example, if I wanted to make myself blue and it's not letting me because I already have a file named blue, then you can find your color sliders, and they're usually named like hue, saturation, lightness, color, something like that. And I can literally just toggle them on and swap them over. Now I have blue eyes. Cool. And then you would hit save. And the name of the expression up here is going to be the name of the expression JSON file that'll show up in your model folder. I'm going to hit cancel, but like I said, you would hit save here. And because these are expression files, we don't need to make a hotkey for them. We can just access them via their file. No need to make one of these. So let's right click, add, and I'm going to name this, let's do my beer toggle again. Model toggles, and hit OK. And then we're going to right click, add, integrations, VTube Studio, set expression state. And we can set this to my beer in the enabled state. And we can also pick a fade time. I'm going to set this really low because I don't want to see the fade in animation, and hit OK. And now we can either bind this to a hotkey, as I showed before, bind it to your Stream Deck, or you can set this to a channel redeem. So I'm going to right click and set this to a channel redeem. Let's make channel reward redemption, create reward, beer, yummy, and hit create. And then if I use this new beer redeem, it will trigger my beer. The downside to this is that now I have a beer activated and it's never going to go away because, unlike with hotkeys, we don't have a stop period. The expression is just enabled and we don't have a way to turn it off. So that's something that we have to do inside of Streamerbot. For expressions, I would just recommend right-clicking and adding core delay, and we can set just like a little bit of a delay. You could set this however long you want. If it's really, really long, like 5 minutes, you might want to look into Streamerbot timers. I'm not going to be going over that today, but we would just pick a time in seconds, or actually in milliseconds, that we want this to stay up for. So let's just say, for the sake of the video, I don't want it to be long. Let's just make it 2 seconds. So that would be 2000 milliseconds. And then we want it to disable after that period of time. So I'm just going to right click and copy this subaction, right click and paste the subaction. I can't read. And then double click this and change it from enabled to disabled. And now if I activate this toggle/redeem, it will trigger the beer, wait 2 seconds, and then remove it. So that's how you would do the timed sort of aspect of an expression toggle. Next up, we have hotkeys. So let's actually make a couple of hotkeys for you to get accustomed to how to make them and how they work. Let's make a VFX hotkey first, because that's a pretty popular one, I would say. To do that, double click to end up in your menu and go to this webcam tab, and sort of down here at the bottom, you'll find this VFX section. We can activate this and then select some effects. I don't feel like doing this very well, so I'm just going to turn on the rain. That's super easy, and hit OK. And then hit done. And now we can save this VFX preset, save current state as new preset. And I'm just going to name this rain and hit OK. And then I can turn this off. And then in the hotkey settings and expressions tab, we can scroll to the bottom and hit plus to create a new hotkey. I'm going to name this rain. Hotkey action will be load visual effects preset. And then we're going to select our rain preset that we just made. And then we can right click, add rain, and let's make this effects, right click, add, and let's just do a command this time just for fun. Command triggered, create command, rain, set it to rain and hit OK. And then here we're going to do the hotkey action. So right click, add, integrations, VTube Studio, trigger hotkey, set it to your currently loaded model, and then pick the new rain hotkey that we just made and hit OK. And now if we do exclamation mark rain, it'll start the rain. And if we do it again, it'll turn it back off. That is how you make a hotkey and trigger the hotkey. The other most commonly made hotkey I would say is going to be for recolors, which again, you can do with expressions, which we showed earlier, but if you don't have any color parameters, you obviously have to do it through VTube Studio. You can go into your model settings tab and then hit customize model, go to multiply screen color for Artmesh, and I'm lagging because it's loading in. There we go. I'm loaded in. And basically what you do here is you pick certain Artmesh. So this is Wave 2, for example, and you can set it to multiply, which is a darkening of the color, or screen, which is a lightening of the color. And this will perform differently basically depending on the original shade. It doesn't work as well on darker colors. It works really well on my white hair because my hair is white. So it's just tinting it whatever color it wants to, and then hit OK. You also have the option to do this from a group. I'm not going to go over Artmesh groups today. I have a video on it if you want to watch that, but basically you can, this isn't even, it's missing parts, but basically you can recolor a ton of things all at the same time if you really want to. You have to manually set a group to do this. Anyway, once you're done doing all of your color adjustments, you would hit OK and then go into your hotkeys, scroll down, make a new hotkey, poorly made recolor. And I'm going to change this to Artmesh color preset and record the settings. And this will save this exact terrible red recolor. That doesn't even look right. And then back inside of Streamerbot, we can right click, add bad recolor. And then right click, add core, command triggered. Again, you can do this as a redeem if you really wanted to. Red, exclamation mark, red. Okay. And then right click, add. You probably know at this point, VTube Studio integrations. And we're going to set this to trigger hotkey, set it to your model, and then set it to the recolor. If I do it right now, red, it'll turn it off. And if I do it again, it'll turn it back on. Now you'll notice that for these other kinds of hotkeys, only some of them have a stop after X seconds. VFX has it, for example, so the rain can automatically stop for you after a period of time, but Artmesh colors don't. So for Artmesh recolors, you will have to do the delay thing and make sure that it turns itself back off after a certain period of time, or you would have to make a timer inside of Streamerbot to make it do that. Whereas for the rain, you can just have it stop after 2 minutes or something like that. Now, lastly, we have hotkeys again, but this time it's going to be by name rather than by the drop-down list. And this functions pretty much exactly the same, but with one major difference, and it's that it's not model specific. With these hotkeys, we have to pick which model we're pulling from and then pick the actual hotkey itself. Whereas for the hotkey by name option, you just type in the hotkey name. So as long as whatever model you have loaded has a hotkey with that name, it'll run it. So this is perfect if you have different models that have the same hotkey. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's switch to my chibi model with the new redeem that I just made. And my chibi model does not have any hotkeys at all whatsoever. So let's make a new one, and we're going to name this exactly the same as the other one, rain. And for the hotkey action, we're going to load visual effects preset and set it to rain. And then for the rain action inside of Streamerbot, instead of doing this by hotkey, we're going to right click and delete this. I'm going to change it to integrations, VTube Studio, trigger hotkey by name. And here we literally just type the name of the hotkey. And now if I make it rain, it'll work on this model just the same as it does on the other one. And if I switch back to my main model, I can use the same command still, because it's just going off of the actual name of the hotkey and not off of a model specific hotkey. Because of this, and also having the automatic turn off feature for expression hotkeys and for like VFX, I think hotkey by name is the most versatile option for most model toggles, so I would recommend that being the one that you use. And it's second best next to coding in C#. And yes, I said the C word, but no worries, we're not going to cover coding today. That'll have to be in a separate video. Lastly, we can go over color tint, and I'm going to make an action to go over this. So right click, add action, tint, and we can keep that in effects and hit OK. And then we can right click, add integrations, VTube Studio, color tint. So there is a dedicated UI to this color tint thing, and it basically lets you pick a color to tint all or parts of your model that color in specific. So you can test this out inside of the UI. So I'm going to switch to something that I can still green screen myself out of. So I'm going to set it to purple, set it to tint all, and then hit test. And it will tint me purple. I'm purple for an amazing reason. Sadly, there is no way to reset this inside of this UI, so if you want to reset it after testing, you have to switch it to white and then hit test again. By the way, Nate, if you're watching this, please add a reset button inside of this menu. That would be great. You can also tint specific parts of your model based off of Artmesh name. And Artmesh names are the things that we saw before in the Artmesh recolor menu inside of VTube Studio. Most of the time they'll be named appropriately, although some rig artists tend to not name them, and so they'll be named stuff like Artmesh 5, Artmesh 6, and that makes it really hard for you to find what you're looking for. So you can filter by the Artmesh number, name, or the exact name. So if you set it to name contains, for example, I know I have Artmesh named bangs, I can add this, and then if I change the tint and turn off tint all and hit test, it'll tint just the bangs because those two art meshes are named something to do with bangs. There's also the option to do tags, and tags specifically come from something called a user data file. Not everyone has a user data file. In fact, I would absolutely doubt that you have a user data file. It's something that you have to set up inside of Live 2D, or you have to type it out manually into a JSON file. And basically this lets you tag Artmesh inside of Live 2D, and then it'll get exported into that file and it can pull from that. If you make Artmesh groups inside of VTube Studio, it does not add to the user data file. It's a separate thing, unfortunately. But that being said, I think I have one for like my body. Oh, I spelled that wrong. And I'll delete this one. And then if I test it, it's only my body. But that's because I have that in my user data file. This is not from an Artmesh group or anything like that. One of the cool things about color tint in Streamerbot is that you can set it to a random color. And you'd think that was the best thing ever, but the problem is that random color includes opacity. So when you test this by tinting all, it always messes up your opacity and turns into Eldritch horrors. I don't know how these are showing up with the green screen. Some of them are probably invisible, but basically it makes you look scary, and it's definitely not the best thing ever. The likelihood that you'll roll a 100 on a scale from 0 to 100 to get exact opacity is very, very slim. In fact, it is a 1% chance, which means that most of the time this doesn't actually look good. And again, Nate, if you're watching this, please add an option to exclude opacity from random. So that being said, most of the time tint is not really the most useful feature inside of Streamerbot, but it's there and it's still kind of cool regardless. Like with the hotkeys, it's not going to turn off automatically either, which means you'll have to have a separate action to reset all of the color tints as well, or you can include this as a sub action after a delay as well. There's a couple more things that we haven't talked about, most notably the fact that we didn't talk about this, which is send raw requests. Raw requests kind of are in the same realm as C# code and logic, so I'm going to have to touch on all of that in a separate video. So if you have any questions about that, let me know in the comments and I will try to get them answered in that video. I hope this video has been helpful to you, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.